Lots of really exciting youngsters you've brought in that, I'll be honest, we didn't expect. Adam Wharton, for example, Gerald Quansah, Curtis Jones, Gerard Branthwaite. But this is a provisional squad. You've got to cull it to 26 by the 7th of June. What chance have those youngsters got of making that final grade?
Well, everybody has a chance. There are definitely some players that we wanted to see. The reason for the longer squad, we were in a similar situation before the last Euros, and more time is going to help us make better decisions and might help us to give a better balanced squad. So there are some injury issues that are very obvious and apparent, and there are some that are a little bit more nuanced and that we don't have all the information on, and sometimes you need to work with the players and see how they react physically to training. So yeah, this has been as complicated a group as I can remember picking, and we've had quite a few complicated ones. But as I say, I think we can make better decisions by giving ourselves more time, and we've got time. So there are moments where actually time doesn't help you to make a better decision, but in this instance it will.
Hi Gareth. Luke Shaw is included in this squad but has struggled with injury. Just from your point, where is he at the moment, and what's your understanding of his situation?
Yeah, I have to say, you know, he's up against it. He's missed a lot of football. The fact that he's been our first choice in that position, we're probably giving him a bit longer than we might have done. And again, I'm not sure what's realistic at this moment in time. So I've talked with him, medical team are liaising with Manchester United very closely. But yeah, I'd have to say he's a long shot.
And in that midfield area of the midfielders that are in the long list, there's under 100 caps there. Is experience an issue, or feel the players' talent can carry them through?
Well, clearly you'd like to have experienced players, and it's still possible that, you know, we can play in a way that we have that. But we need to see some of these younger guys as well. They've had good seasons. We can learn more about them, and they are, we feel, the best players at this moment in time to be able to come and fulfil the roles that we're talking about.
In the forwards area, there's 12 players listed, Jude Bellingham among them. How many are you expecting to cut from that 12 for the final squad?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be obsessed with where we've positioned the players, because some of them could be in different areas of the pitch, so I have to write a list and then these guys put a heading on it. We should just have forwards and backs and it would all be a lot easier maybe, but yeah, again, we don't know where we will need to cut. This is part of the issue. If we picked tomorrow, we might end up taking a dozen defenders because we've got so many questions, and we'd obviously rather not do that. So in another couple of weeks, I think we'll be much clearer on a number of issues. So that's why there are opportunities for everybody. I'd also have to say, I think you can take too many forwards as well, and you can have too many options in certain areas of the pitch. And of course, with forwards, you've got to give them love and make them feel special. And if you've got too many, that can also be complicated. So yeah, there's a lot to think about over the next couple of weeks. I'd have loved it to have been cleaner and more definitive, but it's not the situation we're in. Jack.
Hi, Gareth. Obviously, Jordan Henderson offers a huge amount in terms of leadership and what he brings to the camp away from the pitch. Are you confident that the squad will be okay in that facet, even without him?
Well, he'll be a miss. There's no question about that. He's an exceptional individual, fantastic human being, and he's been in that leadership role since I took charge. Equally, in the last game we played, we had a lot of our senior players missing. We made Declan captain, and him and one or two others with that space, I thought, really rose to that challenge, and that's what you hope to see and what we have to challenge other people to do. We've got young players with a lot of caps. There's no reason why young players can't lead, and the dynamic will be slightly different, but also you're giving space for other people to mature and develop.
So does that mean we can expect to see a slightly different leadership group within the squad in Germany?
Well, we've moved away a little bit from a defined leadership group for the very reason that I think we've got so many people who lead in different ways and have a voice. And sometimes when you limit that group, actually it means that others don't step forward when they might. They defer to a hierarchy. And we've got too many good influences around the group that I want input from various areas. Now, there will be certain things where I consult with a smaller group, and I think that would be normal for any coach of any team. But I have noticed occasions where, you know, even with a captain, vice-captain, there's a bit of deferential behaviour, and we don't want that. We need people to step forward. We encourage it, and over the last year or so, we've allowed that space as well, I think.
Another experienced player who's not in is Eric Dyer. Given his form for Bayern Munich, were you tempted to bring him back? Yeah,
he's played very well for Bayern, and I know that they are very, very happy with him. We think he's just behind the other guys we've selected. We watch every game. He'd obviously played well in some big matches in the Champions League as well. So conscious of that. But we've assessed all of that right across the board.
Henry. Gareth, you mentioned Gareth over here. Hi. You mentioned sort of other options instead of Marcus Rashford on the left. Do you consider Phil Foden an option on the left, or is he, as he's pretty much showing for Manchester City, a number 10? And is Anthony Gordon an option to start, given his form for Newcastle?
Well, Anthony is has obviously missed the last game with an injury, so that's part of that. Phil has played off the right, off the left. I think the key with Phil is where he ends up, not his starting position. So when he plays on the left with City, sometimes he stays wide, but very often he's allowed to drift, and it's always been the same with us. He's allowed to drift. Then there's where the player has to defend. You know, Jude all season has played as a 10. Sometimes is defended on the left wing for Real Madrid. So I think it's about where these players arrive and where you allow them to drift to that's the key. I think if you spoke to all of our players in the forward areas, we never pin them to a touchline. You know, that's not how we work. So there is that freedom. It's obvious how, you know, the brilliant season Phil's had, how he's stepped up in big games. Not only when big players have been out, but when he's been playing alongside them as well. And you want him in those central areas as you do one or two others. So we have to find the best way of making that happen.
James.
Hi, Gareth. You mentioned, obviously, you're balancing a number of injury issues. Can you give us an idea of the number? I mean, just how many players do you think you've got at the moment out of 33 that are carrying something?
No, I don't. I mean, I'd have to go through the list, but you know, there are a significant number that will be apparent to you looking at the players who have missed the last few games of the season and the players who are only just back from the last few games of the season. So we've got an important physical challenge in that some players are going to need a bit more work, but we've got to make sure we push at the right times and get them the minutes that they need in the games, and other players don't need much at all and need refreshing. And so I think we've navigated that well in our previous end of season tournaments, and that's the challenge we've got to do this time.
As you say, you're experienced in dealing with it, but is this the worst you've known this in terms of just the volume of players carrying problems?
Yeah, we've never had so many. I would say we've never had so many unknown situations. We've had, you know, tournaments where we've taken a player that we think would be pretty certain would be back for a certain moment of the tournament. We've had tournaments where we've had two English teams in the Champions League final and not had players for the games. So, yeah, they're different problems, but we're used to dealing with it. And the key is making the best possible decisions. And
do you plan to keep the 33 all the way through to the Iceland game, or are you going to maybe release one or two as you go along?
Yeah, I couldn't answer that accurately at the moment. I think certain pictures will emerge and evolve, and other things might need to wait until right at the end, because obviously we have a game that night that you could have anything come out of that game as well. So, as I said, I always like to give players as much clarity as possible. I think that's helpful in these situations, but on this occasion we're not able to do that.
And just finally from me, did you speak to Ben White at all this time?
No, I mean, as far as I'm aware, he's not available to us.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. Any further questions? There's a microphone behind you there, John. Thanks.
Hi, Gareth. I'm Davide Chinelato with the Gazzetta dello Sport in Italy. In terms of the type of squad you want to bring to Germany, what kind of characteristics are you looking to have, and what kind of situations you want to avoid?
Well, we want to have we have good options in all areas of the pitch. Some areas more experienced than others. We need flexibility. We need players that can provide different skill sets, different attributes, physically, leadership. So, we've picked a very technical squad in the main, I would say. And I think there's a young generation of players coming through who have that. And with this group that we've brought in now, that they might not be for this summer, but we think some of them can be for England in the future as well, and that's also important to constantly allow that progress and development of the squad to happen. So we've evolved as a team in every tournament. We've had to find a different way in every tournament because the attributes of the best players in each evolution of the team have been different, and we're now a lot of changes from the last Euros, and so the team in Qatar looked a bit different, and it will evolve again during this tournament, I'm sure.
Based on your experience in big tournaments, how important is to build the group before you build the squad?
Yeah, the good thing for us is that we have a strong group. They've got a lot of important shared experiences on the pitch. So, yeah, it's one thing eating together and having a cup of coffee together, but the reality is going to Naples, digging in with 10 men for the last 20 minutes of the game, they're the things that help you grow as a team. And so we've got lots of references of that nature where the players have played well, they've dug in together, they've had big wins. There's a lot of tournament experience now, even with our younger players. Some have been to, this would be their third tournament, some of the really young ones. So we're really happy where the squad are at. Of course, everything starts from zero. It doesn't matter what we've done in the past. We have to go and grab the opportunity that lies in front of us.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. You can hand the microphone, just the row behind you. That's great, thanks.
Hi, Gareth. Out of all the players you called to tell them that they'd made the squad, who had the most interesting reaction?
I haven't actually had time to phone any of the ones that we're bringing in. My priority always in these moments is to deal with the players that unfortunately haven't made the squad. The nice calls are of course lovely to make, but in those moments they're not the priority, and I can pick those other players up over this week. So I would imagine and hope they're hugely excited about what's in front of them.
Thanks.
Thanks. James Robson.
Hi, Gareth. How do you think this squad compares to the previous tournaments you've been in?
I'll probably be able to assess that better when we're ready to finalise the squad, really. There's definitely more options in the attacking areas. If I think back to Russia, the balance of the team. But yeah, I think that's hard to compare and contrast. I think we've had good squads for all the tournaments, but different balance, different needs, different solutions, and we've, as I said earlier, had to find different ways of playing. And I think we've got a pretty set style of play now. I think the players enjoy that. We've had good results doing it, so we're not going to move far away from what we've been. But clearly the profile of our midfield, for example, looks different, and so the team will evolve because of that.
And you say you've got more attacking options. It's always been a theme in previous tournaments that there's so much reliance on Harry Kane. There's always been a focus on him. Do you feel now, when you look at what Cole Palmer's done this season and what Bellingham's done, maybe there isn't quite that reliance on Harry Kane?
Yeah, I mean, not just Harry, Raheem as well was crucial in the last Euros, especially for getting the goals in big games. So we've shared that load a lot more. You can see across that forward line the number of goals they've scored for their clubs this year, but also then for us. People like Bukayo have weighed in with a lot of goals for us as well. So yeah, you need those options. We need people to be able to come in and refresh the team. It's the physical demands of a 7-game tournament. We've found out twice, and to go the distance, you need good depth in the squad and the ability to refresh the team as well. So we feel within the squad that we've picked, we've got that opportunity.
And to your mind, do you think this is a squad that can go the distance? When you're putting this together, do you look at this and think this is a squad that can win the Euros?
Yeah, I mean, of course, everybody's waiting for that headline, and I'd be an idiot if I said no. And equally, if I say yes, that doesn't mean there's a hell of a lot of work ahead of us. So there's no doubt what's possible. The team have been very close already, so they know what's possible. They know what they've won at club level and what that's taken. And equally, you can see in cup football, which we go into, firstly, you have to navigate game by game, qualify from the group. But then in knockout football, we've seen in the Champions League, you'd argue that Arsenal and Man City were in the best 3 teams in the Champions League this year. Neither got to where they would have hoped to have got to, because it's one moment, it's fine margins, and so that is our world. You're being judged and have to deliver on those moments. But are we one of those teams that can win, of which there are a few? Yeah, absolutely we are.
Thanks, James. And we finished with one back with Rob Dawson.
Gareth, it feels like virtually every Premier League team has had a raft of crippling injury problems, a real problem for so many. I wonder why you think that is, whether it's fixture congestion, maybe the after effects of a Winter World Cup as well. You're clearly feeling the effects of it now in selecting this squad. And is there part of you that feels a bit cheated that this England squad has done so well in recent tournaments? You go into this as one of the favourites, you could have a really good go, and yet a lot of your key players, particularly in defence, you just don't know if they're going to be anywhere near fit.
Yeah, the job here is to adapt to the situation you have and the hand of cards you're dealt with. So we don't control a lot of the things. We pick up the consequences of a lot of decisions, whether that's people in the team, out the team, injuries, whatever. I think the injuries is a very complex thing, because it's not any one of those areas you've talked about, but could be an accumulation of a lot of those things. Sometimes players have, because clubs have got lots of injuries, players have had to play more than they might have done, so they've fallen. Maybe some have come back earlier than they might have done, and they've broken down in recovery or early parts of playing again. Definitely a lot of matches for players with the calendar. But yeah, I think it's too easy to say it's Winter World Cup or it's this or it's that. I think if you look across the board, there are lots of different reasons for the individuals. There are some players with better injury records than others. Training intensities, yeah, all sorts of things can go into that. So everybody always wants straightforward solutions, but problems are normally pretty complex.
Do you feel a bit cheated by it, though? The fact that you can't...
What's that?